Hey everybody, today we are comparing the movie Samurai 1, Miyamoto Musashi, and the book Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. Samurai 1 is titled as such because it is a trilogy. There is Samurai 1, which we will talk about first, and then Samurai 2 and Samurai 3, and in all three of them we get from the beginning of the Musashi book to the end of the book. So starting with number 1, I just wanted to do a couple of comparisons with it. Things that were the same, things that might have been different, things like that. The first movie was made in 1954, the second in 1955, and the next one in 1956. And so they were all very closely filmed and released back to back, and they were all about an hour and 30 minutes. The last one was an hour and 45, so I was thinking, oh, well then that's good because there's a lot of stuff to cover. And so I think that if they had all of them to be like 2 hours each, we would have gotten a lot more out of certain sections that they just left out entirely. And it makes sense for them to have left certain things out entirely because of runtime and because of how they would put that to film and have it not be too much going on, because there's just so many different things happening at once in this book that it makes sense you have to cut something. So I understand that even though the third one was longer, they still did cut out quite a bit. So in terms of Samurai 1, it was very true to the source material. Those main characters that you're looking for, Otsu, Musashi, Marahachi, Osugi, Takuan, they're all there. And I think the casting is great, though I will say they aged up the characters by quite a lot, because Musashi definitely doesn't look like he's 17 at the beginning of this movie. But I understand that it was most likely because they wanted to keep the same actor for all three movies, and in the course of this book there's over 10 years that pass by, and so we want a man that looks in his late 20s by the end of the trilogy. And so by having him already be an older man at the beginning, it makes it easier for the next two books when he's aged. We start out with the battle that is at the very beginning of the book. I believe it's Sekigahara. At this battle, they decide to go and join, and afterwards everybody thinks that they died, and it just kind of follows the same as the book, where Takezo gets into some trouble and people are looking for him, and they eventually find him and he gets punished by Takuan. That part is the same as it is in the book, though when I imagined him being tied up in a tree, I imagined him being like tied around the tree, but no, he's like literally hanging from a tree branch in the movie. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's got to be brutal. And there's a storm just like there is in the book, and Otsu rescues him just like she does in the book. Like, everything really just is very, very similar. In this first movie, they don't really leave a whole lot out. They have Osugi in there getting angry from the get-go. They have all of the characters just playing their parts really well. Otsu realizing that she loves Takezo instead of Marahachi, but just like in the book, she receives a letter that tells her that Marahachi is already married and that she needs to forget about him. And she really is very heartbroken about that. And that happens before she decides to free Takezo and realizes that maybe it was for the better that Marahachi was no longer to be with her. Something that was different from the original text and the movie was that part of Musashi going to try to free his sister and all that stuff, and that's how Takuan decides that his official actual punishment will be going to jail for 3 years to study. In the movie, Takuan tricks him into going up to inside of a room and locks him in there with all the textbooks, and he's like, once you've read all of these, then you'll be ready to be freed. Then during that process, he's just given his new name, Musashi. And so I imagine that they just didn't want to have an actress that they had to hire just to play her for like 2 seconds, because she's just not very much a part of the book to begin with. So that made sense to me, that's how they ended up doing that part with Takuan and Musashi. But other than that, most of it was really just very similar. I was very impressed. I was like, okay, this is great. And it was really making me look forward to the next movie, which is Samurai 2 Duel at Ichijoji Temple. Musashi is getting ready to go to all the different schools and do all of the different battles and duels that he needs to do. And of course, the main one in this book is the Yoshioka school, because he has to duel so many people. And so in this second movie, we start out with him doing a battle, and we are finally introduced to Jotaro, and he unfortunately is underutilized. I feel like he's in the book a lot compared to in the movie. There's not very many scenes with him, which was kind of sad. He battles Baiken, which is someone that he doesn't defeat for a very long time in the book, but he defeats him very quickly in the movie, and it's just kind of like, I'm so strong, right? And he meets a priest that's like, well, you are strong. The problem is you're too strong, and kind of gives him a lesson in how he needs to discipline himself and his soul. The order of the battles is a little switched up in the movie. They don't have him battle Sejuro like right away. They end up dueling with his brother first, and then he battles with him later. Other than that, those battles pretty much go as expected. And the same as the book. We just don't get to see a lot of it on screen. There was only one scene, I think, out of all 3 movies where they actually showed like blood, and every other battle it was just like whoosh, and the guy's like and he falls to the ground and he's presumably dead, and like we don't see any wound at all, but we just have to know that, okay, he is dead. That happens for pretty much all the battles. But the battle with Sejuro's brother only lasts for like a minute, maybe. There is I really like how it first starts, where Musashi has the high ground, and then he like takes this really cool jump off of the high ground to be level with Denshichiro. Again, they take like one swipe at each other, and then they back off and they're like focused again, and then it like cuts to the next scene. It doesn't show you what happened, so you find out later by people talking about what happened, because it didn't even show it. And I was like, well, that seems kind of cheap. Like, we didn't even get to see the battle. So that was a little disappointing. But he essentially he goes through all these battles, and we're finally introduced to Kojiro. And when we meet Kojiro, he is really wanting to battle Musashi, and he is thinking like, oh, he's the only other person, the only other samurai that's close to my level of skill, so I want to meet him. And in the book he meets him several times where they just speak to each other, and that's that. But the only time we see him in the movie meeting him is not until the 3rd movie, actually. So we don't actually get to have much other than him wanting to have a duel with him. Like, that's all we get, really. Otsu and Akemi, they have some moments in the 2nd movie as well as the 3rd movie where they like speak to each other, and I'm pretty sure the book never had them speak to each other ever. Otsu knew about Akemi because she saw her speaking to Musashi from afar at one point in the book, but she never like had confrontation with her. But they chose in the movies to focus more on this kind of love triangle thing with Akemi, Otsu, and Musashi, which that really wasn't how it was in the book, but they made it that way in the movie. We do have a lot of women pining over men in this movie, and some of it is because it was like that in the book, but I feel like they took Otsu's character and made her just more desperate and more like, you know, longing for Musashi, and there's some things that I don't think they made very accurate with her character in terms of how she behaves towards Musashi. But the 2nd movie, Samurai Duel at Ichijoji Temple, ends with them, like, Musashi just saying that he loves her and that he'll just be with her. they decide to start traveling together, and he messes things up at the end. So then they separate. And so it's kind of similar to how that happens in the book. They do start traveling together, but he never admits his feelings to her so boldly at that point in time. He still says he's gonna like be searching for the way of the sword and bettering himself in that. He's not just gonna give it all up to be with her. But in the movie, it seems like he does do that, so that's definitely different. We do have Osugi and Matahachi trying to like off those two for like revenge of their family. They actually changed the cast of Matahachi because it was not the same actor. I was like, hold up, that's Matahachi? Wait a second. And I had to look it up, and like they have someone else playing him in the second movie. I don't know why I did not research that, but that was noticeable. But then you get used to it because he's not actually in this movie very much at all. Like they take a lot of stuff about him out, or they just downplay it, so it's just really fast. And same with Osugi, like we only see her with Matahachi at like the very end of the movie where she tries to get him to go and like kill them. And it really wasn't much at all with those characters in the second movie. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about Samurai 3 now, which is Duel at Ganryu Island. And I just love the way that this picture of the, movie poster or movie cover, I just love this picture so much. This shot that's of the battle at the very end. It's just, I love how the sun is and like the coloring, and I just think it's like a really beautiful shot right there. In this one, we get a lot more of Kojiro's love interest in this one, and I believe they changed the name of her in the movie compared to what it was in the book. But she, like, you could tell there was kind of like a little secret love going on between them that wasn't like public, because Kojiro has to have his, he needs to have his reputation and the way he's perceived by people to be like this strong samurai who's currently trying to be recruited as a teacher of Lord Hosokawa's house. Basically just the same as the book. People were trying to get him to become part of it, and also for Musashi, they want to also see his skills and see if he could become a teacher as well. And so that is going on, and in the movie they have this girl, like, they have this part where he says to her, like, let's just go elope and we'll just be together. And I was like, what? They did not focus this much on. I mean, maybe if you read between the lines, there was some of that going on between these two. But like in the movie, I was just like, his main objective is to fight Musashi. Why are we like focusing on the love thing again? So I feel like these movies were more romanticized than the way they were in the book. Even though it had those moments, they were just like so much more dramatic in the film, which I guess makes sense. That's how a lot of older movies of this time were. I feel like they made the women characters only be there because they were pining over a man. Yes, that is fairly accurate to the books, but they make it extra for the movies. Right away, we see aged up Jotaro, which he should not be with Musashi, but the movie starts with them being together still and traveling together. And at this point in the actual book, they are not supposed to even be in the same like city place together. Like Jotaro's off with Saizo at this point in the book. They got separated and lost from each other. And the second that I figured out that they were not going to bring Iori into the movies, I knew that they also weren't going to have Gonosuke, because why would they? Musashi would never have met Gonosuke unless he was searching for Jotaro and Otsu, and then he finds himself in this village where he meets Iori. And so none of that happens. They do have the part that I really like from the book where he goes and he takes some time to just help this village grow their crops, and they make their own home and they do all that stuff. But instead of with Iori, it's with Jotaro, and instead of Gonosuke being in there, they don't add this character. He is in the book for like half a second. He's like a horse trader, and they meet at an inn that he's staying at one point, and he's just like, I'm gonna be Musashi's disciple too. And so he just goes with them to this village, and they take care of the fields together. And I was just like, that's just kind of random. Like, why did they need this other guy in this part? So yeah, so a little disappointed that Yori wasn't in there, but I just figured they're gonna have to cut something, and the easiest thing to do is cut people that were not in the book the whole entire time. So Yori and Gonosuke got the cut, and Jotaro got to stay in it longer, and his whole development, like between his ages of like 13 to 17, those are like major turning points in what happens to him in the book, and none of that is explored in the movie because they just keep him with Musashi the whole time and make him out to just, you know, be there for Otsu and be there for Musashi and be a good kid. None of his rebellious, well, at the beginning of the movie there's a little bit of his rebelliousness that comes out, and his where he kind of gets into a fight with somebody because he shouts out at them. So there's like one moment where he's like a kid, but then the rest of the time he's like really well mannered and everything. And so I would have liked to see Iori really, and that whole thing happened, but just no time for it. While they're there at this village and fixing it up and doing that kind of training, Otsu finds them. Otsu's told where they are, and she finds them, and she goes and she starts like working on the fields with them and stuff. And like, Otsu's not, they just wanted her to be in it more, I guess, because she's not supposed to be there at all, and yet she is. So this is definitely the movie that they changed the most things from the book to keep Otsu and Musashi having more scenes together. And Akemi also eventually finds them. They actually spend a ton of time in this village. They kind of make that the main area, the main scene for this until we have the duel with Kojiro at the end. When they are here at this village, they've had a problem with bandits and everything, and Akemi is trying to travel and find her way to Musashi to try to get them to be together, which in the book she's long given up on him at this point, but she's still pining for him in the movie. She gets caught up with Toji, and she's like, where's my mom? And it turns out Toji's is like stuck with these bandits now, and apparently her mom's like dead and Toji's alive, and like all of that's different from the book. They're like, well, you're gonna help us get Musashi, you're gonna, like, we're gonna go and burn the whole village and you're gonna help out with that. So Kemi goes, and she's there. She has another confrontation with Otsu. She actually like says, well, why don't we have a duel together and let's fight and whoever wins gets Musashi. And I'm just like, oh brother. So all of that stuff happens, which of course is not how it happens in the book at all. So we definitely have a huge change of like things that they wanted to do with the direction of the women in this movie. Eventually we have the duel that happens. Musashi goes to the island, and there's a couple of people watching as witnesses, and he gets to fight Kojiro finally. And I think that the way they shot this was, again, just so beautiful. It was like right during like sunrise, and the coloring gets all like bright and yellow and orange. We have all these different hues of color from the sun, and it's just really pretty, and it's really intense because they do not rush to action in this movie. You just really have to pay attention to why they are moving the way they are, and they're not rushing anything. Hello. It's so great to watch it because it's not like nowadays where you just see movies where the action is just so in your face and it's hard to even tell what's going on. But here you have to see them take these slow movements, and they're only going to move when they feel that it is right to do so. And so you're just really focused on these two men, and it's more personal and more emotional in that kind of a way versus a big action scene that you would see in modern movies. So I really appreciated how this ended, because after the battle the movie essentially is over, and which makes sense because that is how the book ends, with this battle being the last thing. And so it makes sense for them to end it there, and it would have been weird if they'd added more after that. That wasn't in the book originally. But anyways, I really enjoyed these 3 movies. I absolutely think it's worth it to watch them if you have read the book. And even if you haven't read the book, you can appreciate them for what they are, and you don't have to nitpick all of the differences like I was when I was watching it. It is available for streaming on HBO Max. That's where I watched it. I was very happy to see that it was on a streaming service that I had so that I could watch them. And it was actually very good quality because these are part of the Criterion Collection, and they're known for making movies, especially older movies, really good quality again, and making them look really nice. And even on streaming, I felt like these looked really nice. So give them a watch and let me know what you think about them. If you like samurai movies and things, it was really great. I enjoyed watching them very much. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.